Hey everyone, it's David. Today we're going to be talking about pricing strategies when operating a service business to try to make sure that you get the maximum amount of revenue.
I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses while controlling risk. So, if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So, be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Are you a small business owner that's thinking about exiting your business now or in the next few years? My team and I are here to help with our unique zero commission program that we've been using since 2016. We can show you what your business is worth, prepare the package you'll need before you meet your first buyer, even run a confidential online advertising program for you just like business brokers do. And we'll coach you through the whole process, or you can hire us to manage it all for you, including coordinating your whole sell-side deal team. Head over to howtosellmyownbusiness.com to learn about how my team and I can help you get ready by watching a series of videos we prepared that explain each step in detail. And if you're ready or just curious to learn more, reach out to us and we'll get you started or schedule a call to answer your questions. I look forward to meeting you and learning more about your business.
All right, so a couple of weeks ago, I was invited to go down to Cancun, Mexico, to be a speaker at the B Sage conference, and this is a conference for wedding industry professionals. So there were venue operators and wedding planners and photographers and caterers and all kinds of people like that who help people with weddings. And these would be sort of more expensive, more complex weddings generally because people were looking for hired help to help coordinate and make everything work, right? And so I had a lot of, as is the case with conferences, and it's a big reason why I'm a champion of people getting out and going to events, conferences, workshops, seminars, etc., in person, is because not only can you learn from the content and the speakers, etc., but you get so much value from just meeting the other attendees, right? And just having conversations at coffee time or afterwards or during meals and that kind of thing. So I had a ton of these conversations, and a few of them sparked some ideas for videos that I'm going to be creating here for the channel. So there was this one lady who runs a wedding planning business, event planning, I guess it would be more specifically what she does, because it's in addition to weddings every year, she also does corporate events and charity fundraising and things of that nature. And she was telling me that they only take on 10 weddings a year. And weddings in her market generally don't happen at Christmas time or the middle of the summer. They're usually fall and spring. And what she will do is she'll create a calendar where she boxes out a certain number of time frames or windows where they will do one wedding in each window. And so she gets this capacity issue where she's willing to sell 10 of these slots every year for people that want to have highly complex, highly produced wedding events with a lot of coordination required with a lot of different vendors, etc. And we got into the topic of pricing because the way she's got her capacity organized, what happens if she doesn't sell one of those slots? Or what happens if everyone wants the same slot, etc. And it was very interesting because she explained to me the methodology that she had finally developed over many years of being in business of figuring out how to price things correctly so that people who really wanted a certain time slot would be able to get it and she would be able to get a really great price for herself, but that she would also be able eventually to make unsold slots available to people, maybe at a little bit of a lower price point, but be able to attract people that were a little more flexible in their plans and make sure that the worst case scenario didn't occur, which would be, of course, for one of the slots to be unsold, because then she would miss this piece of her revenue that she plans on for the year. And so we had a great conversation. She was talking about the specifics of how she organizes that. And made me think, maybe we should just make a video about pricing strategies in general and the different things you can think about when you're thinking about what to charge customers when you're operating your small business. So I put together 12 different strategies as far as pricing goes. And I've got a little bit of commentary about each one. Some of them kind of overlap. But what I want to do is introduce a couple of questions as we look at each one of these strategies, namely being that when you consider your pricing strategy, I think that what is really important is understanding if you have an ongoing relationship with a client or if it really is a one and done kind of thing. Because I think some of these strategies could be very appropriate if you are in more of a transactional business where you might meet a customer and then serve the customer and then likely not deal with them again, versus a relationship that is ongoing. Because some of these strategies, if you applied them to an ongoing relationship, I don't know if it would work so well. So let's explore them together, and we're going to start off here with number one, and that is dynamic pricing. So, what is dynamic pricing? It's this idea that you change your prices on the fly based upon demand, and this would be famously the pricing model that companies like Uber use, right? And so if you've ever been in a time or a place, maybe at the end of a concert or something, and there's thousands of people getting out and they all want to order a car at the same time, all of a sudden the pricing jumps up tremendously because of the incredible surge in demand, and then you end up having to pay a high price, or you got to go sit on the curb somewhere and wait for 40 minutes for the pricing to start coming down. So that's dynamic pricing, surge pricing. Is it applicable in the world of small business? It, in my mind, it's difficult to pull off unless you have some kind of sales management system akin to an Uber, where the system is dynamically responsive in the minute, in the moment. In my experience with a lot of service businesses, it isn't quite like that. And I'm thinking mostly of sort of consulting or ad agency or somewhere where you're delivering a professional service to another business, for example, or to a homeowner. You might have a sales cycle where you're talking with your prospective customer over the course of several weeks or a couple of months, and you're giving them the information they need to make a decision, and then all of a sudden, obviously that decision making process is going to involve the price and consideration for the price. And if a bunch of them all of a sudden all at once decide to come to you and say, now we want to buy, and you tried to implement the surge pricing, what would it mean? It would mean you would have to say to them, well, if you really want it done right now, I have to charge you more. I mean, you would kind of upset the rapport building and the relationship that you'd created during the selling cycle. Um, it would be different if you were auctioning off tulips, right? Which, an auction is one that we're going to get to in here in a minute. So that would be the first one is surge pricing. The second one that I have on here on my list is tiered pricing. So offering multiple service levels at different price points for different customer segments. And, I do this, right? Yeah, in some of the products and services that I offer, where it's like, if you want my help to do this and this, this is the price. If you want to do it on your own, then you buy this product, this is the price, where you're kind of giving people options as to what level of involvement that you want and what the price is going to be. People naturally, I think, get this one when they're offering different services to other companies. You've got your basic package, your more complex package, and then like the luxury package. When it comes to, trying to implement this to maximize overall revenue, what it can mean is that you block off certain amounts of your capacity for the higher priced tiers. The challenge is that you could end up selling your capacity in the lower price tiers and not make the big sale to for that highest price tier. And then you have to kind of like juggle capacity at what, and this is the example kind of with the wedding planning lady. She's got this pricing set up. If she doesn't sell one of those pieces of capacity, then she makes it available to a lower price point. And so it requires vision and management and really keeping an eye on the schedule. And she was explaining to me that she had it really down to a science. She said if she has an unsold slot, a certain number of days before that slot, uh, she changes the price on it. And she's got a system within her company where all of her staff can look at the pricing for each individual slot and see if it's been reduced or not. And she's got this rule based system that she's developed over the years. Number three would be a premium pricing strategy. So, what does this mean? Well, it means that you just position yourself as like the top-notch operator with the highest quality product or service. Um, and the challenge with this one is if you don't sell all of your capacity, you're always left wondering, could I have brought in more money if I had made something available at a lower price point? Now, over the years, I started off working on my own. Then I, added some employees and built up a little bit of a team. And so the challenge is what I see often when I'm talking with other business owners is if you come from this background of being a hardworking, hustling kind of person, and you're used to, trying to work all the time to maximize the amount of money that you bring in. If you set a certain price point and you get this lull or this moment of quiet, it's very easy to be struck with fear or panic that you need to now do something to make the phone ring or to bring business in. And so I've got a good friend who suffers from this tremendously, actually, where if things slow down or quiet down, then he throws himself full-heartedly into doing more marketing and sales efforts because he feels like he needs to be doing something all the time, whether it's serving a customer or doing sales. And the truth is that he's grown beyond that in his career. And I find that a certain evolution is required where you learn, hey, if I have this quiet period, now's the time for to go for a hike or to take a day off or to go relax. Especially if you've been doing something for years and you know there's a certain ebb and flow and you know more business is coming. You have to take the breaks when they're available to you because when you have a whole bunch of customers that want your service delivered, you may end up having to work extra hours. You want to avoid burnout. So the premium pricing model, I think, is a very applicable one. It makes sense for certain kinds of practitioners, you know, lawyers, certain kinds of high end practitioners. Um, Offering your services at a discount could actually harm your brand or harm your reputation if people find out that you sold what you do for a lower price. So it's a strategy. It requires discipline. It also requires staying power in case you have, unsold capacity. You have to be comfortable with the idea that you're going to use that time to relax, and a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. Um, Next one, number 4, we've got retainers or subscription models. So this is where you basically block out a certain amount of your capacity and you have people subscribe by paying on a regular basis, and you can better manage your workflow in the future because you already have your customers filled in. So an example of this, I think, would be sort of coaches, for example, that work with a certain clientele over an extended period of time. And the nice thing about this is you can determine how many clients you want to work with at any given moment, and then you can apply a waiting list if you want, right? Nothing would be better for your pricing elasticity than to be able to tell people, I can't handle another client right now, but if you'd like to wait, I can get back to you when I have availability, right? Because it just, you know, makes you that precious thing that people are going to want even more. Again, requires discipline and can be combined with some of the other pricing models that we're going to be talking about in here. So the next one is value-based pricing. So this one is number 5, like 5 stars that you give me when you read my books on Amazon. So value-based pricing is that you charge based on the outcome or the value delivered rather than the effort that you put into it. So, classic example of this would be somebody who looks at the transformation they're going to create in their client's business. I'm going to save you $100,000. Therefore, I'm going to charge a percentage of that, even if it just takes me a relatively small amount of my time. The solution I provide is worth a tremendous amount. And if you have a product or if you have a service that you know um, ties itself to this kind of outcome, this can be a very valuable way to do it. I liken this to sort of an equity play because what you're doing is you're partnering in a certain way with your client and you're saying, I'm going to work on your business with you and I'm going to improve your business in this way. And so then I want to be paid based on the overall improvement I make to the business. You have skin in the game with respect to what happens in the client's business. And I've spoken to many people over the course of time who have these kinds of models particularly in the advertising and marketing space, where they will use some kind of bench line and then they'll charge based on the growth that they help the client achieve. Um, and so if you can do this, then it makes sense over simply charging for your time, for example, or even a fixed price, package. If you know that you're delivering tremendous value to people, then you can price yourselves based on that. Number six would be auction or competitive bidding. So this one is one of the ones where I really think that you need to take into account the long-term relationship you might have. Um, the example that think of all the time when I think of an auction is I think of a business being sold. There's one business for sale. There could be multiple people that want to buy that business. And once the business is sold, that seller will not engage in a similar transaction with any of those people again. So while that seller does, of course, often have a very vested interest in a great relationship with the successful bidder, because there could be some seller financing at play, the seller may be required to stay on and help with a transition. The seller doesn't necessarily have any kind of vested outcomes in further relationships with the losers in the competition, right? And so if you have a client pool and you have limited availability and you're making people bid in an auction for your services, but you may continue to want to try to do business with all those people in the future, I think this is a dangerous strategy, um, simply because it doesn't necessarily lead to successful relationship building over time. Um, if you're trading in something like flowers, I gave that example before, the Dutch tulips that are being auctioned off. I mean, everybody knows there's a limited supply of the tulips, and everyone knows that your tulips are great, so they could keep coming back to bid for them over and over again. But if we're talking about someone like a consultant and you make people bid to do business with you, you could leave a bad taste in the mouth of the people who want your service. They are not able to get your service because they didn't successfully bid. What then is going to happen is that they're likely going to say, "Where else can I get this?" So I don't know if this is a particularly solid one for a lot of B service providers. Number seven. So number seven here is priority pricing. So we're talking about fast track services or rush fees. I've seen this from the government, right? I've been on different websites where the government will have some kind of processing for some kind of permit or application or something like that. And there will have another lineup where it will say for this additional fee, you can be in the rush line. And you see this at amusement parks too, where admission to the park is maybe $100, but for $199, you get the express ticket that gets you to the front of the line for all of the in-demand attractions. So again, if people need immediate service and you can pull it off without damaging the relationship, there might be an opportunity here. Um, an example that I thought of was like a graphic designer. If you need a rush turnaround, maybe they charge a little bit more to make sure that they get it done tonight. They're kind of, I guess the explanation would be, hey, I'm going to give up part of my evening to get this done for you because you need this last minute job. I mean, I think that could kind of make sense and could potentially endear your customer to you, realizing that you are available for these extraordinary efforts from time to time. One of the challenges that I would point out is that if you are going to do this kind of rush fee, you need to get the pricing correct. Here's why. If the premium you charge isn't high enough, some people could look at that premium and look at it as a permission to violate the normal terms of service that you have. Okay. So, for example, there was a company I ran into, and they had a sign up saying, if you need us to go back, oh, it was a medical practice. And they said, if you need us to go back and reprint all of your receipts for the year, we have to charge an extra fee for this. So, they were being asked by patients to produce reprints of billing for tax time or whatever, right? And so they put up a sign saying, we have to charge a fee for doing this. We're going to charge you $5. And I said to the lady at the counter, I said, um, if I was a lazy person and disorganized, I would see that sign and I would say, "Oh my goodness, thank goodness I don't have to keep my receipts organized. For only $5, I can ask for all of the receipts of the year reprinted because the fee's too low." Right? You're basically inviting people to take advantage of that, and the fee probably doesn't actually cover the time it would take for somebody to go through and do the effort of collating and printing all the things off. Whereas if it was like a $75 fee, a lot of people would say, "I don't wanna spend $75. I'm not gonna do that," and it would have its intended effect. So you've gotta get the pricing right if you're gonna do some kind of priority or fast track, rush fee sort of thing. Um, Number 8, bundling and packaging. So I experimented with this a couple of times. So you take different kinds of products and services, you put them together in a bundle, and maybe give someone a little bit of a discount or a special deal because they're buying more than one thing at the same time. An example I thought of is if you were a consultant, you could kind of bundle different kinds of offers or services together into one fee, and maybe that spreads out over a certain period of time, and if the timeline between the deliverables has some degree of flexibility in it, it could allow you to then manipulate the delivery schedule to make sure that your capacity of time was better utilized, right? And so, again, it depends on what you're selling, whether the clients have firm deadlines. If you are offering tax advice, for example, then you've got some pretty strict deadlines there with respect to tax returns or year ends, things like that. You may not have the same kind of flexibility in this sort of offer. Um, the opposite of surge pricing. This is one of my favorites. This is number 9. So the opposite of surge pricing is discounting slow periods, right? And I think this is a much safer way to offer the same product or service at two different prices. Because if somebody believes the price of the service is $1,000 and then they show up one day and say, "Now I want to buy it," and you say, "Whoa, we're busy. It's 1,200 now." That's going to be off-putting for a lot of people, right? But if you are engaging people in a sales cycle and you've been telling them it's $1,000, then you send an email to someone saying, "Hey, we have an additional capacity right now. If you wanted to move forward today with the service we've been discussing, that $1,000 service, we will do it today only for 800 because we want to bring in a client and fill our unsold capacity." Well, that's going to make people feel good, right? And it could potentially get somebody to act more quickly than they were thinking of. So this off-peak discount is one that I've experienced myself. And recently I took my kids on spring break down south, and they wanted to do parasailing. They've been asking for this for years. So we went online, we found a parasailing operator, and it was a certain price per person. But before noon, and the company opened at 10 a.m. every day. Before noon, it was like $20 off. So they don't get as many customers before noon, but that wasn't a problem for us. So we felt great because we were able to get this extra, um, lower price just because we were willing to go and make an effort to be there earlier in the day. So off-peak discounting, I'm a big fan of for a lot of different products and services. Number 10 is literally, we're talking about capacity. Number 10 is capacity-based pricing. So you charge more as your slots fill up. I like to call this airline pricing as well, or concert pricing, right? So many of us have the experience of going onto an airline website, and we will see that there's a flight on a certain day, and we know that the airplane has 100, 150, 200 seats, whatever it is, and there could be different classes of service. So you've got maybe 4 different prices for the economy seats, and each price has different perks that go along with it, refundability, the ability to reschedule, whether you can bring a bag on the plane or not, whether you get a checked bag or not, etc. And usually the way it works is there's a certain block of the cheapest tickets available, and once those are sold, that fare is not available anymore. Then there's a block of each one of these categories. And I knew someone once that worked for an airline who said that they actually manipulate the size of those blocks based upon how many seats have been sold and how much time is left before the flight goes. And so what'll happen is the pricing will tend to get more and more expensive as you get closer to the flight date. But then, the day of or the day before the flight, those unsold seats, they're going to bring in $0. So often then maybe the price will go way down. And so this is capacity based pricing. If you are doing some kind of one-off event, then this is something that you want to bring in, to the table as far as how you plan out how you're going to charge. I've done this before for live events that I've done where I might only have a dozen seats available in a conference room, but I'll make the first 4 or 5 available at a discount. Websites like Eventbrite make this really easy. And so people who log on to see the tickets can see, oh, there's a discounted ticket available, and you can even decide if you want to show how many are available. And once those have been sold, it just disappears. And so anyone visiting the site after that doesn't even know that some of the people got in at a lower price. So this can be a really valuable strategy, especially if you're talking about one-off things where you're trying to fill a room. Um, you could take advantage of this even with a subscription model based pricing. So we talked earlier about a coach who might want to have a certain fixed number of clients that they work with on an ongoing basis. If you're starting off in that coaching business, you might introduce a strategy where the first 3 people that are your clients are a certain price, and then you charge more for the fourth, more for the fifth. And then once you're full, you could then set a new price, which is even higher, and you keep everyone grandfathered in the pricing. But as soon as one person cancels, it means you've got a time slot available for another client, but that new person's going to come in at the higher price tier. And it can be a strategy that works well for someone who's starting off who wants to fill up some of their time to get some revenue going. But then ultimately, over the course of time, as clients drop away and you replace them, you end up really maximizing, the prospective revenue from the time slots that are available. Um, Number 11 is referral or loyalty pricing. So again, let's talk about relationships. If you are in a business that is highly transactional, where you're going to serve people a one-off time, this probably isn't going to, be suitable to you. But if you are going to do business with people over and over again over the course of the years, then having a pricing system which rewards that loyalty and those long-term relationships could be very valuable. So this is where, the longer people are with you, the more they qualify for some kind of discount or rebate, or maybe the more they buy from you, the more they qualify for. I see that all the time, for example, in like the restaurant industry, where if you buy from a certain food wholesaler and you hit certain limits, target points, I guess, over the course of the year, they might give you a big rebate check in January, which is really appreciated at a time of year when most restaurants are doing a lower level of business, right? And so you can do that too. If you are constantly seeing the same people year over year over year, and they keep coming back to you for work, and they refer other people to you, you can give them some kind of bonus or discount or something like this. Or you can simply say that the longer you're with me, the lower the price you pay. Or even grandfathering pricing schemes are a way of doing this effectively. This is something that I do actually with my Business Buyer Advantage group coaching program. When people join the group, their price is locked in forever. So over the course of time, as the content in the group has grown and there's more and more information, every once in a while I do a pricing review of my own business and I raise the price for the subscription. Well, there are people that in the group today that joined in 2018 and they're still paying the price they were paying in 2018, right? And so after a while, people start to say, "Well, I can't quit. I get such a good deal," right? And so it creates a stickiness to it. So that would be a referral or loyalty pricing. And finally, number 12 would be making sure that when you've got clientele locked in, and they go away, that you get compensated in some way, especially if you can't then resell the capacity that you set aside for them. So this would be cancellation fees and prepayment discounts. So you charge a cancellation fee if someone doesn't, show up, or you offer discounts for people who prepay and, remove your risk from allocating capacity to them. And, a great example of this would be somebody that you hire as a speaker for some kind of live event. If you plan, like when I was invited to be Sage, it was like last fall where they reached out to me, and we made the arrangements and selected the dates and all that kind of stuff. So for the last 6 months, if anyone had asked me, "Hey, would you come to our thing on that same week?" I would have to say no because I'd been booked for that event. If something happened and the conference had been canceled, then I would have lost out on the capacity, right? And so what you normally see is you normally see some kind of non-refundable deposit made to lock in that time because the service provider, in this case a speaker, would know, hey, if something happens and I don't end up doing it, I've just lost that capacity and I'm unlikely to resell it to somebody else. You'll see cancellation fees for a lot of different service providers, even, beauty salons and things like that will try to do it, or create rules around it. Like you have to give so many hours of notice if you need to cancel your appointment because they know that if you just don't show up, what's going to happen is they didn't earn any money during that time slot and they couldn't get somebody else in there. So again, this is part of pricing strategy, and I would say that it's important, especially if you are in a kind of business where you can't repurpose time. If you're doing one-on-one talks with people over Zoom, and someone doesn't show up to a Zoom call, and you can just keep busy doing something else you have at your desk, it's not as bad as that, nail technician who then ends up sitting there twiddling their thumbs for 30 minutes or whatever when they were supposed to be working with a client. So I hope that was insightful. I hope it gives you something to think about. I like to do a review of my pricing strategy every year, and just think about some of these things and think about how my costs have changed and think about what sort of feedback I get from people. I think generally one of the dangers of pricing strategies is people try to set prices at which they everybody wants to buy from them because they think that if I can sell to everybody, then I'm going to be maximizing my earnings. What I've learned over the years is that you want to have a price point that is, high enough that some people don't want to pay it. If a certain small percentage of people that reach out to you and talk with you end up not buying because they think it's too expensive, then you're probably around the sweet spot. Um, because if you are charging too little and a low enough price that everybody wants to do business with you, then there are probably a lot of clients that you're working with who would have been willing to pay more. And especially in these times of inflation and uncertainty and changes that seem to be coming at us really quickly, the number one thing in any business is protecting your margins and making sure that you have the revenue and the gross profit to cover all of your overheads and build your war chest. Um, Nothing gives you options in business like cash. And in times of uncertainty, you need to have cash available. Anyway, thank you so much. If you're thinking about potentially exiting your business in the next couple of years, be sure to reach out and talk with us um, over at howtosellmyownbusiness.com. And with that, I'll say see you later. Cheers.
So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I've prepared for you. You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor. Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.